We're on a mission from God.
Wendy?
So I got that going.
Darling?
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Light of my life.
We enjoy your films.
I am a human being.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in real time. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jessie Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today marks the 40th anniversary of the release of The Changeling on March 28th, 1980. It was written by William Gray and Diana Maddox, based on a story by Russell Hunter, directed by Peter Medak, and released by Associated Film Distribution. This is the Canadian film, so it's our third foreign film technically for the year after a couple of Australian ones.
No, Canada's not a foreign film.
They're our property.
America's hat.
This is based on a true story. True in quotes, story that took place in Colorado, not Seattle. This film is shot a little bit at the very beginning in New York, but mostly Seattle and Vancouver area. The filmmakers could not find a house that they liked for the story, so they spent $200,000 building the facade of a house.
Yeah, but I don't think it was just a facade.
The whole entry hall, I think, and the garage. And
yeah, the entry hall of the garage, some of the hallways, I think,
maybe,
and some staircases.
It was sets.
Yeah,
but because of what happens.
Yes.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no.
Looked
it up. It's like, oh, okay.
These stairs are not up to code. This is a favorite horror film of Alejandro Amenabar, who did The Others, which I know you're a fan of.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, a lot of
sense.
sense.
Oh my god. Yeah, The Others is one of my favorite horror movies, and I absolutely loved this movie. Which and I was thinking when I was watching this movie, I'm like, this really reminds me of The Others.
Well, he's a big fan. Scorsese also included The Changeling in a list of, inexplicably, the 11 scariest movies of all time. I don't know why he just needed to tack an extra one on there. He felt like he was leaving somebody out. It took 6th place, so technically it's in his top 6 scariest movies of all time, narrowly edging out The Shining, which we'll cover later this year. But his number one movie was The Haunting, the Robert Wise film from '63, which I've never seen. I saw the remake.
Yeah.
And the remake is obviously the better one, with Owen Wilson and Liam Neeson. If I'm not mistaken, that was The Haunting, right?
Yeah, that was The Haunting.
Okay, because there was like 5 different remake horror movies.
They did A House on Haunted Hill and
13 Ghosts.
13 Ghosts, yeah. I also thought a lot about The Innocents,
which is also in Scorsese's list.
Yeah, which is unbelievably great.
Yeah, that was number 10 on his list. I think that's probably why he made it 11, is because he forgot to put Hitchcock in his top 10. And so Psycho is number 11 in his top 11. I don't think I've seen anything else on his list other than The Exorcist was number 8. This is the 8th film to feature actor George C. Scott and Trish Vanderveer, his actual wife. Rick Wilkins was the credited composer for the film, but the music box theme is actually the work of composer Howard Blake, which we'll hear more from later this year in Flash Gordon. The film was nominated for 10 Genies and won 8. Doesn't that sound magical?
What's a genie?
It's a Canadian Oscar. And this is...
Can't they just use ours?
They can't just call them Oscars.
No, they're part of the U.S. It's not a separate country. Don't be silly.
It's the biggest state. This is the first year they were called Genies, too, which makes them extra magical. We start the film with...
Hold on.
We got more.
No, before we go and spoil this one.
Sure.
This is an action thriller, not an action thriller. What am I talking about? This is
definitely not an action thriller.
This is a suspense thriller.
This is a historical drama.
Like it's a mystery type of movie.
It's an exposition thriller.
An exposition thriller. Sure, whatever.
It's just a straight psychological horror.
I don't care what we call it. Whatever it is. It's really great, and I don't want to spoil it for people if they haven't seen it, because it is honestly a wonderful movie that you don't want to listen to all of the things that we're about to reveal about this movie until you've seen it.
That is true. This is another one where we're going to go ahead and give you the vintage video recommendation that You see this one, you come back to the review. We put out a lot of episodes. You can just listen to the next 4 that dropped probably today. And
Come back to this one.
Come back to this one when you've seen the film, because it's worth seeing before we screw it up by blowing all the punchlines. We start the film in snow somewhere, presumably outside New York.
Yeah,
where they were living.
It just said upstate New York.
Do they give a year?
No, but it does say November 27th.
Yeah, it gave a date, but not a year.
Not the year.
Yeah, I was like, it's like November 27th. Okay, I wrote it down because like
very important.
It seems
like,
very important.
It's a very specific date. You couldn't just say November
what time?
or winter.
Also, that doesn't actually come into play at all.
Many things don't come into play, but I'm not saying that they're complaints.
Yes.
But there's a lot of stuff that happens. Like,
some of
is
it
this ever
confused
gonna
me
come
a lot.
back?
No.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that it's November 27th.
Honestly, the first time I watched it, I was like, wow, that was great. And the second time I watched it, I was like, wait, hold on a second. This didn't make any sense, and this didn't need... Why is this in here? And I got so confused that I was like, I literally don't even know what happened anymore. And then I had to watch it a third time to piece it together in my head again. But we start in a snowy area where the car seems to have died.
Yeah.
And the entire family is teamed up to push the car off the road. And there's like a payphone right off the road in the middle of nowhere.
This is like a windy country road, like in the middle of nowhere, and there's just a phone booth.
It would have made sense if it was like a call box. Maybe that's what they had for call boxes back in the day.
Right.
But there's just a payphone off this highway, and George C. Scott goes to talk on it, and his wife and daughter.
Right. Yeah, that took me a minute too. I was like, is this his granddaughter?
Because she's
and
so much
daughter
younger.
and granddaughter, or wife and daughter? But they say, like, let's have a snowball fight. It's like, oh, no. You need to conserve energy because you guys might be out here a while. Who knows how long it's going to take.
Yeah, also, like, rule of thumb, if your car ever breaks down, just stay inside it. The safest possible place for you when you're on the side of the road is inside your vehicle.
Although...
Unless you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a cell phone and you need to call for help. Because then you're just going to freeze to death in your car.
He is calling for help.
Right, so he had to get out of the car to do that.
Yes, he got out of the car. Everybody else
stayed
should have remained in the car. You should not be frolicking
Correct.
on the side of the road.
Although I will say, in this instance, had they stayed in the car, they still probably would have been ejected.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. In 1980, they had seatbelts.
But
they would have been hurt.
But the car is dead. And so they're pushed to the side of the road. And if they got back in the car, they wouldn't buckle their seatbelts back on. They'd be sitting free.
Maybe not. But, like...
Still, they wouldn't have been smashed by the car that they were sitting in.
That's true.
Spoiler
alert.
But
How is that a spoiler? Oh, right, because that's what happened.
Because they got hit by the spoiler.
On the front of the car.
Spoiler alert.
That's a very literal spoiler alert.
They didn't need the spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'm going to get hit by a car, I'd rather be wrapped in, sheet metal and fabric.
Sweet protective glass.
Sweet. So George C. Scott is making a phone call. John Russell is the George C. Scott character, is making a phone call, and the ominous music is following cars coming from opposite directions, and it's clear what's happening. Before I spoiled it, I didn't spoil it for you guys, right? I didn't spoil it. A car, it seems like he swerves onto the wrong side of the road, and a truck, to avoid it, swerves off the road, crashes into the car, and at that point, the wife and child, Joanna and Kathy, are standing in front of the car on the side of the road. So the car plows into them and then into a snowbank.
Yeah.
It's a pretty devastating shot.
Yeah.
And it cuts immediately to The Changeling. It's just like one of those movies that sets itself up real well.
Yeah. And if only the setup was going to come back in some way.
What do you mean?
It doesn't.
I thought it did.
I have definite disagreements about this.
Okay.
But
we cut to months, years later. Who knows?
Yeah, because it's just now it's March 4th.
Yeah.
Very specifically.
Probably months later.
Without a year.
Yeah.
John Russell is walking past the Metropolitan Opera in New York, where Peter Venkman famously spun near a fountain after telling client Dana Barrett that he would see her Thursday. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you, sir, but I'm glad you're feeling better. Still very pale, though. He goes home and packs up his house, and we get a flashback to when it was unpacked, and his daughter walked into his office holding a ball and was like,
Daddy! Catch!
bounces a ball towards him. And then we cut back to the present as they're packing up, and one of his housekeepers has dropped the same ball onto the floor, and it's bouncing toward him in the office. And he picks it up and says, make sure that this makes it to Seattle, where he's apparently taking his entire life to Seattle, where some friends have helped him get a teaching job at Seattle University, which is actually a college in Vancouver playing the part of the Seattle University.
We will see actual parts of Seattle in this, but we have not yet established what he does, which I don't think is established until that moment where he's in the college.
Right.
Correct.
He's a famous composer.
Yeah, very famous.
We get a quick moment of him sitting with his two friends who probably invited him to Seattle, and they say, oh, well, we set you up at the university. How long are you going to be staying at the hotel? We should find you a house. I know realtor people that we could set you up with.
Well, they offered to let him stay there.
Right.
But he doesn't really want to.
And he's like, no, I'll be fine. I'll figure things out.
But they also have kids, and I think that they're trying to make the implication that he doesn't really want to be in the house with these kids, because that's kind of painful.
Yeah. He finds the house that's been recommended to him, but for some reason he didn't drive up to the house. He pulled over on the road and stopped at the gate. And when the woman from the Historical Society who found the house for him pulls up, she offers to give him a ride from the street to the front of the house.
Right.
This woman is Trish Van Devere, George C. Scott's actual wife. She reminds me of the woman in Beetlejuice who is trying to sell the house.
Absolutely.
100%. And I honestly think that Tim Burton cast her because she resembles this woman.
Yeah, I thought it was, and I was immediately looking her up. I was like, this is the woman from Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I thought the exact same thing.
Because there's actually going to be, I'm going to reference Beetlejuice a few more times over the course of this film. Because I think that Tim Burton is a fan of this movie. Because I found so many other directors talk about this film, I was like, there's no way that Tim Burton didn't mention it. Like, the creepy attic that the ghosts hang out in that's locked away from the rest of the house. Like, there's no way that he didn't mention this as being a part of the inspiration for Beetlejuice. But I couldn't find an interview if he did mention it. But there's a lot of this movie that I think fed into the germ of the Beetlejuice idea. But she takes him up to the house, goes inside with him. She's walking around and telling him that the Historical Society has a bunch of pieces that actually belong to the house that I guess they took out for safekeeping while the house wasn't inhabited. She tells him that there's a man named Mr. Tuttle who's going to help him maintain the property because it's a needlessly large house for a man by himself to live in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they never really explain that. Like, it doesn't make any sense why he would come to this location. I mean, the house is absolutely enormous.
Yeah, it's probably like 20 bedrooms, like just a full-size mansion. And the closest they do to explaining it is like, there's a music room and you're a composer, so you probably want a music room, right? And smaller houses don't have music rooms.
Yeah.
It's like, you could have gotten me a 2-bedroom place with a music room.
Yeah, and like, here's this antique piano that I'm sure you could use. It's like, if he's a composer, he probably wants to use his own piano, and probably a piano that's well maintained and tuned.
Yeah, not one that's been abandoned in a house for many years.
And I'm sure he already paid a lot of money to ship his piano from New York. So it's not like he's going to be like, oh, well, there's already one in here. Oh, chuck that one then that I paid $1,800 to ship here. He walks away from the piano and we hear it go bong, like plays a note on its own after he walks away.
Well, this is like, so we get a quick, like, a couple shots of a cleaning woman cleaning up the house that he's taken it. And he's working on composing something, and then when he goes to strike a key, it doesn't strike. Like, he keeps tapping and it's not playing.
I hate this. I like to torture him.
And then something calls his attention away. I can't remember what it was, but we stay with the piano.
Right.
And this is one of the things that bugs me about the movie, is I feel that the music does the movie a disservice. Because there's this grand sweeping score starts building up before anything is happening.
Yeah.
And then it zooms in on the key and it's like ding, and it goes like, it's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, you
didn't have to telegraph it, and you didn't have to highlight it after it happened.
Yeah.
If the camera had just held on the piano after he left the room, wide shot, and then you hear the piano key strike, I still would have gone, ooh, okay, something's going on.
Maybe in this particular moment that was unnecessary. I feel like overall the score does the film a service. I think that there's a lot of the mood of the film that comes directly from the score.
As long as it's not interrupting stuff, which I feel it does a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think more with Richard on this one. So I think that there were moments that had great score and everything, but there were definitely enough moments. If the score is calling attention to itself, where I on several occasions in this film thought, why is the music like this? If the score has done that, then it's kind of failing. Like
Sure.
it should be sort of receding in and just like and working with the film. But there were many moments where I'm like, this is really weird music.
I'm okay with the music taking the foreground sometimes. I don't think it's like editing where it needs to be as invisible. I think that a lot of the time it's okay for the music to even precede moments as long as it's not overbearing and ruining them like for this particular shot. But for the most part, I actually really liked the score. I remember even saying out loud when we were watching it, I was like, I'm digging this music so far.
And the soundtrack apparently got a huge release.
I'm not surprised.
And it has like several different variants in this, which added to my anger. I was like, I'm not a big fan of this score, and there's so many different versions of it.
Well, now I know what to get you for Christmas.
I'm going to be ragging on this movie quite a bit, and I have to say this. I liked this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm ragging on it because I feel...
You want to hold it to a higher standard.
It could have been perfect with just a few little tweaks.
Well, you prefer the Angelina Jolie remake, which is very different.
Yeah. I was like, when is the son going to get kidnapped?
Well, that does happen, though.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I'm also very upset that Jean Marsh was only in that first scene. Because I was super
excited. As the wife, yeah.
That Jean Marsh is going to be in this movie. And I only know her from really 2 other movies that I love crazy.
What are the 2? I know what one of them is.
Yeah, which is funny because when you brought her up, you're just like, oh yeah, she's she's the queen in Willow.
Beth
Morda.
Beth Morda. Yeah, there you go. And I was like, and then I looked her up later. I'm like, what? You didn't tell me she was Mombi.
Yeah.
From Return to Oz?
Yeah.
Is she really?
Yeah.
She's Mombi, or one of the heads. I guess the main head of Mombi.
She's also the body of Mombi.
I totally missed you even saying that. The only other thing I had was Monica Barling in Frenzy, the Hitchcock movie.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize those were the same people. The Queen Bev Morda and Mombi. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, she is great though.
Rocking the 80s.
But yeah, it is a shame that she was only here in this very first scene and is immediately hit by a car and then never shows up again.
And just to be clear, this has absolutely nothing to do with the Angelina Jolie movie.
Right. Well,
yeah.
They both feature changelings, which is like a legitimate term for when a child is swapped out for something else.
Is that really I didn't realize that was an actual term for that.
Yeah. That happened on Troll Hunters, the DreamWorks animated series. They have changelings where they take the baby out and replace them with a troll.
Oh.
That's called a changeling, and they call it a changeling on the show.
Oh.
I bring that up because Jesse works for DreamWorks, and
I didn't realize that. I just always assumed changeling, and I feel like it was in like a Star Trek episode or stuff like that.
Well, that was the whole race that René Auberjonois was a member of, the changelings.
There's also somebody in this movie that was in the Changeling Star Trek episode.
Yeah, so there was an episode of Star Trek, the original series,
called
The Changeling, and John Colicos
is that DeWitt?
appears in this film, as well as a Klingon in...
Yeah, that's the police officer.
Yeah, DeWitt. He plays Kor.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
K-O-R.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when you guys started talking about Star Trek and Changeling, I was like, oh, that's right. There was a Changeling Star Trek episode, and the police officer from this movie was on that episode.
I always just kind of thought it was another term for shapeshifter.
Oh, well, no, I mean...
I didn't realize it was like a switching the body, switching the person out for another person.
It's not usually for another person. It's usually for a mythological creature.
Okay.
And it's something that was like olden times, like legends and stuff like that, where your baby was replaced with a monster. Mm-hmm. Like it happens in The Omen. That's a changeling situation where you get a demon instead of your kid.
Gotcha. Okay, this makes so much more sense now.
So
I didn't know that was a real term.
The titles are actually relevant to the plot, it turns out. We see John Russell in class teaching a room full of students. It's supposed to be like 23 kids.
Yeah.
Obviously, this classroom was not a classroom for 23 kids. Like, they either gave him this room because they knew that 150 extra kids were going to audit the class, or they just figured that no one would care, that they obviously wouldn't give this professor this room for 23 kids.
Again, hammering home that this guy's famous. It'd be like if John Williams was going to teach a class and only 20 kids got in. You guarantee other people are going to show up just to see him.
Right. And he's set money-wise, so he doesn't care that there's that many people auditing the class. He's just like, well, there's supposed to be 23 of you. It seems there's quite a bit more. And it is raining outside, so...
and he's got a good sense of humor, and he's very well, the class is responding to him.
And he's also not shy about his celebrity, because he sits down, he's like, you probably know this song, and then starts playing what I assume is his most famous composed score, because they cut immediately to the local symphony performing the score for a fundraiser. They're trying to raise money to help maintain the symphony orchestra. John Russell and Claire Norman are walking around the concert hall, and they hear the introduction of Joseph Carmichael, the local senator who is he a state senator or...
He's a senator.
A state senator or national?
I would say state senator.
Okay. And he's giving a speech about raising this money.
Sorry, when I say state senator, I mean one of the two
senators of Washington.
State.
Okay.
Not like...
I'm talking about the state senate,
not
like
the
the
state
smaller
senate.
body.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so...
I was like, that was confusing.
Yeah, sorry. He is the senator for the state of Washington.
Yes. Likely the senior senator. Claire makes a joke that he's already given a number of speeches, possibly even at this specific fundraiser, but he's giving yet another speech. And the senator makes a joke himself like, oh, well, you all know how I hate making speeches. But then he goes on to talk about how it's important to raise money for the symphony orchestra. Russell and Claire basically walk away in the middle of the speech to go grab a drink. She mentions that Carmichael is actually on the board of the Historical Society also. And the next morning, right on the dot at 6 a.m., a loud clanging sound repeats and echoes through the house.
And that's one thing I do not like.
Okay.
I do not like punctual ghosts. Because...
The 6 o'clock a.m. doesn't have any bearing on the story?
It has no bearing on the story. Like, I thought... Because I rewatched the murder scene very carefully. Like,
Where are the clocks?
Like, does he see a clock? How does he know what time it is? And why 6 o'clock? And how does every clock in the house perfectly synced? I have yet to see any house.
The ghost does that.
He perfectly
goes around and sets
clock.
it all day.
Does it? If it was daylight savings, because they didn't have daylight saving in that time. Like, what was the time?
Richard is giving this far too much thought.
That's why I don't like punctual ghosts, unless it has a purpose.
That's fair. I'm not gonna defend that. That's obnoxious and unacceptable.
Thank you.
That this ghost is making a sound at any time of the day. Why 6 o'clock? Why not? I figured the actual reasoning for 6 o'clock was so that they could blame it on some thing that would happen at the same time each day, and it would believably be the house's fault.
Like the heat coming on.
Yeah.
Well, I think the opposite would be easier to write off. It'd be like, yeah, sometimes houses make noises. The end.
Right, but it's happening at the same time every morning. So, I mean, starting here, but the implication would be that, oh, well, it's the boiler or whatever is turning on at this time every day because that's when the sun is coming up and the temperature of the house is changing. But yeah, that's loud clanging sound, which I assumed was going to be more piano keys being struck. Like, I thought it was like whole chords being slammed down, but we never moved close enough to the piano to see if that's the thing making the noise. We just hear it from, where is he, in the kitchen or something the first time?
I think...
Or is he in bed?
I think he's in bed because
yeah,
it's
he wakes
6 in the
up
morning.
both times.
Okay. I remembered he woke up the second time. He sits down at the piano while people are working all around him in the house, and he's kind of inspired to write a song. And it seems like they don't spell this out explicitly, but it seems like this is the first time he's been inspired to write a new song since his family passed away. He seems like suddenly you can see life coming into him as he's sitting at the piano. And I don't think he's actually playing anything here. He's just kind of leaning back and forth, and we're conveniently cropping his fingers out of the shot. But he's playing.
You mean the actor isn't actually playing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's kind of a happier song than you would expect him to be inspired to write at this moment.
And he's recording it.
Yeah,
here.
he seems to like it so much that he goes and he gets this recorder, he sets it up on the piano and starts recording the song.
And while he's doing this, a door behind him slowly creaks open. Did you either of you catch the boom mic in the mirror?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
I was like,
saw
is that the boom mic?
I didn't. I was.
We're gonna
I
throw a
didn't-
screenshot of that on the Instagram.
I didn't
then
back it up to double check. I was wondering if that was a boom mic because it's really kind of hidden between the chandelier and like him.
It's almost perfectly obscured. It's just like they just had it off a little bit because there's a statue on the mantle too, and every other angle, it's the statue obscures the boom mic location. But that initial
too many
camera...
mirrors. So Claire brings in some of the art from the Historical Society that had come from the house initially, including one that's like a picture of the house when it was first built.
Again, something I thought was desperately going to come into play.
No, none of this art.
These are things that are being returned to the house, and he's going to see something.
No, but having all this art like under blankets and stuff, like that again reminded me of Beetlejuice in places where there's like all their stuff is covered in blankets after they die, and also like having all this art like filling this old house.
This was, I mean, so many of these things reminded me of the others, like with the
white sheets,
the curtains and shades and fabric over all of the furniture and stuff like that, and the doors randomly opening. Like this is like straight out of this movie.
There's a movie from Universal called The Turning that has a lot of the same stuff. It's got Mackenzie Davis and
it's The Turn of the Screw.
Right.
Which is what The Innocence is based on.
Right.
But The Innocence, I can't stress enough how good The Innocence is. The Innocence one is is very divergent from the book. And I think this one is trying to be more like the book, I guess.
Oh, okay. Do you think The Innocence is better for its changes?
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
I'll have to check that one out.
I was very curious about Claire's outfit when she came in.
Jess was like, apparently she took a horse here, like
Yeah,
while she's talking
walks
to him.
in that gear, and I'm like, they better point out the fact that she's just totally in riding gear, and they do.
Before the end of the scene, John Russell turns to her and he says, "Oh, are you going riding?" And she's like, "Oh yes. Do you like horses?" They do have a quick moment before that where she finds the ball in his desk. She's complimenting the pieces that he brought with him and including a desk that she liked the finish on it. And she opens it up and finds the ball. And she's like, oh, that's silly. You have a toy in here. And he's like, oh, that was my daughter's. And she's immediately like, well, I screwed this moment up. Anyway, I'll put this back in here and go shoot myself in the face. And as she's walking out the door, he's like, oh, do you ride? And she's like, oh, yes, I was going to be doing some riding later. Do you like horses? And so they go horseback riding. And immediately, again, he's like,
my daughter
just reminds me of my daughter. She really liked horses. She's just like, oh God, let's go get some ice cream.
Then hard cut to him just crying in bed. And I was like laughing in my mind if the camera's gonna pan up and she's just gonna be there laying next to him while he's
that would have been great.
I also feel bad that he never mentions his wife.
Right. He's just like, oh, my daughter. I miss my daughter so much.
Yeah.
And what's her name? Joanna. Which is the name of his...
the other lady.
Yeah, but it's funny, too, because it's George C. Scott, and he's Joanna was his partner.
Oh.
Which George C. Scott also has a Joanna partner in The Rescuers Down Under.
Well, Joanna, what do we get today? A dingo, a fat old razorback, or a nice big boy?
And they both loved eggs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But the Joanna in Rescuers Down Under is a lizard.
Yeah.
Is it pronounced Joanna lizard or is it goanna? Because it's spelled with a G, right?
Yeah. I think
But he calls her Joanna.
Yeah, I think he calls her Joanna.
Google says goanna.
Goanna is the pronunciation for the lizard species.
So Joanna is just a fun take on the name goanna.
Yeah, that makes sense. We should mention also, because it's probably confusing, his wife in this movie is a lizard.
Yeah. And she was in Goanna Man.
Goanna Man.
She is the changeling.
That's the one. Is that the basketball movie where is it a man posing as a woman on a
I believe
WNBA
so, but that's
team?
also Joanna Man.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm sure
more
our
pounding.
Are so confused.
At 6 a.m.
The punctual ghost strikes again. Maybe a piano? No, it's not a piano. Oh, we should mention too that the reason he's crying is because he had a dream of the accident reoccurring. We get a quick flashback of the cars striking each other on the side of the road, and then we cut to him crying. He is in the basement suddenly with Mr. Tuttle, and Mr. Tuttle's like, it's an old house. You know, old houses make sounds. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, because he thinks it might be like a... He describes it as something else, but I describe it as a water hammer.
Yeah.
where water hammers have to do with differentials and water pressure.
Right.
If you look in some sinks, you'll see like these weird little pipes that come off and are just capped off at the end. It's just a place for water to get displaced. House I lived in back east had a really bad one. Every time you turn on the hot water and turn off, you just get this big clang.
Yeah.
Every time you shut it off.
You break pipes with that too.
Exactly.
But the housekeeper guy is just like banging on pipes down here. He's like, no, nothing. It doesn't have anything to do with any of these. It's literally probably just the boiler or whatever. It's nothing to worry about. It's just an old house. Russell has a group of students over from his class to do a rehearsal in the music room. And after everybody's left, he's sort of distracted and led around the house by the sound of running water and like a moaning sound. It sounds like a woman moaning. But the first room it leads him to is just the bathroom it's the sink in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where the sink is running, and he turns off the water, but he can still hear water running, and he follows the sound upstairs to a bathroom where a bathtub is getting filled, and he turns off the faucet at the bathtub and suddenly has a vision of a child drowning in the bathtub. A young boy drowning in the bathtub.
Yeah, I wasn't clear that this was a young boy drowning in the bathtub. Like, I at first thought it was like supposed
one of
to be
his students.
No, I thought it was supposed to be his daughter. Like, he was envisioning his daughter drowning in the tub.
I thought the same thing until my second viewing. I was just like, oh no, that's definitely the little boy. But I thought, again, because I was waiting for the mother and daughter thing to come back.
Well,
yeah.
On the first pass, I assumed that one of his students didn't make it out of this house and drown, and he didn't know about it, and that was him noticing the body. Like, the house had killed one of the students while they were there, and that it was going to be about him getting blamed for it. But none of that is the case. And he seems to know that this isn't real immediately, because he doesn't freak out about it at all. He just kind of backs away and walks back downstairs and doesn't call the police, like you might do if you found a body in your bathtub. He tells Claire about all the weird sounds and the water, and they're on the balcony at the Historical Society, which is in this really beautiful, super narrow building.
Yeah, it's almost like the old fashion of Times Square.
Yeah.
In New York, but it's not. It's but it's a very similar kind of building where it's on a very narrow triangle.
Yeah, but this triangle has a balcony on the short side of it, so that they can go out and just look over this intersection from the. But he's telling her all about the weird sounds that he's heard there.
This building is actually in Vancouver.
Right.
No, it's not in Seattle. So, I mean, they're pretending as if it's in Seattle. But this is the Europe Hotel in Vancouver.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a very cool building, which makes sense that you would use that for the Historical Society. Mm-hmm. And another woman in the office stops him to tell him that his lease is all screwed up. And that he might not legally be staying there.
Yeah, and she gives him a very stern warning about the house. Yeah. That the house doesn't want people there. Having some kind of knowledge that something's is dwelling
going on there. Yeah. Russell is at home walking out the front door of his place when suddenly a window breaks and a bunch of glass lands near him. It's a window of like an attic window. And he basically goes back inside and finds a boarded up room that looked like a closet.
Yeah, which was very confusing to me. It's
like a sunken door frame.
Yeah.
And they boarded up the door and then just put shelves and hung stuff in front of it so that you would think it was a closet.
So that means the door on the outside was fabricated.
Right.
To look like it was part of the hall. Because I was like, because you wouldn't have a door that
and
led
then
to another door.
2 feet back.
Yeah. One of these doors wasn't original.
Yeah. The one that's
I don't know. There, like I've been in old houses where do you remember like kind of like the staircase in Home Alone where like, you know, going up to the attic. So like I've been in old houses where you have a door and then like a really short hallway and then the staircase up, which you could put another like there is an archway there.
Right. You could put another door.
But this is literally like an arm's length between the two doors.
Yeah. Like if you were, it'd be the size of a phone booth if you were closed both doors.
Yeah. I don't think that there was it actually a door behind the shelves or was it a wall?
There was a door.
It was a door that was boarded up.
So that's why I think the door on the outside was fabricated in order to make this room appear to be a closet when actually it was just an alcove that led to the attic stairs.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you get another little taste of Beetlejuice there when you're finding this hidden room, and you're like, oh, what's going to be back here? And I was joking when we were watching it the first time, like, oh, there's going to be a whole miniature model of the town. But he breaks down all the boards. He has to hammer on this lock.
Yeah, there's a big old railway style kind of padlock on this door. And as he's pounding on it, the ghostly pounding is happening. And this is like my first indication of, do not open this door.
Yeah, right?
This seems to be a warning. Not only is this door locked from the outside, but you're hearing the pounding at the same time, like saying don't.
Yeah,
to me,
but
is like, don't do this.
Flying in the face of the warning, he decides to start pounding in sync with the clanging of the house. He's not even just like, I'm going to break this thing open, I don't care about you. It's like, oh, you want to help me? Okay, you can guide me through hammering this thing. And then he's able to break the thing open, and he goes inside. This room probably hasn't been in since 1909. It's just completely overcome with cobweb. It's dark inside. As he's moving through, he finds school papers, right? Mm-hmm. That say CSB 1909. There's a tiny wheelchair in the corner under the window that is broken out. A lot of dust. There's a music box, and he opens the music box, and it starts to play a song. And it's the exact same song that he was inspired to compose at his piano. And we cut to him playing the recording on top of playing the music box. And it's not only the same song in the same key, but they're at the same tempo. He's playing it perfectly in sync with the music box, despite never having heard the song before, or so he claims. And he's playing it for Claire to point out to her how crazy it is.
Which is also really tricky to set up. Like, if you have a real recording and this music box, and you're trying to, like,
sync it perfectly.
Sync it perfectly.
Yeah. I feel like if I were him, what I would be worried about right now is that my entire career was a sham, and that I'd been taking songs that I'd heard in my life and started, like, making money off of them, not realizing that I'd actually heard them as a child somewhere.
Well, what's another issue that I have is that everyone is very quick to believe everything he has to say.
Right.
Like sometimes she's skeptical maybe once that maybe you've been working too hard, but then everything after that is like, nope, I completely believe you, and I'm actually witnessing things happening.
Yeah. The rational response to this revelation would be, well, you obviously heard this song somewhere, and it was in your head, and so you wrote this. And it's like, yeah, but it's in the same key. It's like, okay. You have perfect pitch.
Yeah.
You heard it in this key.
But he asserts no, so then she takes him to the society to start doing research. She goes, I believe you. Yeah. Let's figure this out.
And he takes her up to the room, but they don't turn on the lights, even though we do see later that there are lights in this room, despite electricity not being in many houses in 1909. Russell reads that the house was preserved thanks to a grant from the Carmichael Foundation, which is the name of the senator from the earlier scene. The older lady who warned him about living in the house in the first place at the Historical Society tells him that a doctor lived there in 1909 and left after a family tragedy. This was the Bernard family, Dr. Bernard. They decide to look into it, so they go find a microfiche at the local library where they read that the daughter of the Bernard family was killed after being struck by a coal cart. And they read about the rest of the family and go visit their graves at the local cemetery.
So
this is a red herring that threw me off so much the second time I watched it.
I was also laughing at the speed of which this coal cart was traveling in 1909.
I know.
I was just picturing the scene in Austin Powers. No!
Yeah.
Was this coal cart going 50 miles an hour down this road?
Well, I was also trying to remember, what is the car that hits their car that kills them? Because it would have been really interesting if it was an actual car that was overloaded with coal in the back of it.
Oh, it was a big semi hauling something.
It was a big truck. Could have been a coal truck.
But yeah, this daughter was killed, and they go and visit the graves of the family. Back at home, John Russell is there by himself, and Kathy's ball comes bouncing down the stairs. He's freaked out a little bit by it, and immediately decides to throw away the only thing he has to remember his daughter by.
By driving it away into a bridge. Like, I don't know if he was, like, trying to tempt this experiment.
I almost wonder if he felt like they were gaslighting him. Mm-hmm. And he was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of this ball in a way that only I know about it, and there's no way to bring it back.
Right.
And so he drove it to a bridge out in the middle of nowhere, threw it into the water, and the second he walks in the door, when he gets home, it comes bouncing down the stairs again. And it's bouncing at this, like, uneven pace.
Yeah.
Like, it's like really disturbing. It's like the eyeball in Scrooged.
Oh,
When he drops it out of frame and it keeps bouncing higher.
The golf ball.
Golf ball, yeah.
But it doesn't lose any momentum when it
sometimes
bounces.
it comes higher than it did before. But yeah, so that's basically all the proof that he needed that there's something supernatural going on here.
And then he goes to like a psychic research center where this guy's like, I absolutely believe everything you have to say. It's like, it's so easy.
we're seeing the exterior of the building, and the scientist starts talking, and he literally says,
"Oh, I believe everything you're saying, Mr. Russell. The noises, the light, the teleportation of objects, all very familiar."
It doesn't sound like when Dan Aykroyd is talking to people in Ghostbusters, and he's like, "No, I literally believe what you're telling me." It sounds like, "Oh no, I believe I'd come on into this room and put on this jacket. I believe everything you're saying." But this guy is being legitimate, and they're trying to do that thing that every supernatural movie has to do. Exorcist did a lot of it, where you have to break through this supernatural threshold, and you're like, okay, we have to convince the skeptics that this is real. So we're going to show a man of science say, you know what? We interview a lot of psychics, and 99% of them are just bozos. But every once in a while, there's a legitimate psychic who can tell the future magically by using magic. So I'll hook you up with a magic lady. And then we move to a seance happening at the house with a medium that he was hired.
Best scene in the movie.
It's amazing. So we keep... I want to just reiterate the fact that we keep ripping on parts of this movie, but it has been legit freaky up till this
absolutely.
point. Like it has been very suspenseful and terrifying. You know, you're not clear on what's going on, and you're freaked out.
Yes, but this day of John Russell's life is the most terrifying for me in the whole film. But so they organize a seance. The seance is basically John and Claire and another woman from the Historical Society.
I believe it's Claire's mother.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Claire's mother. And the medium, and then her like assistant character. And they all sit down, and I feel like I've seen this before in something this form of a seance where everyone sits around a table, obviously poorly lit, as is the nature of these ceremonies, and she has a bunch of pads of paper in front of her, and she has a pencil in her hand.
I didn't know if you were going to bring up the others. Because this is the exact scene of the others.
I'm sorry. Yes, I should bring up the others. Yeah, they do this exact same seance in the others.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of then. But she's just sort of, her purpose is to swing this pencil around and let the spirit guide her hand. So she just swings it in circles, in kind of a diagonal circle on a piece of paper, and asks questions, and it's her expectation that the ghost will take her hand and spell words out.
And her husband or associate, I think it's her husband, like he keeps
sliding the paper,
sliding it out, and then moving her hand back to the other side so she can guide it.
And she also can't look at the paper because she has to focus on the room. So he has to read the paper as she's writing it so that she knows what the ghost responded, so she can factor it into her next question. But as they're moving, the ghost says that it is there, that it's listening, that it is not Cora, which is the girl who was killed by the runaway coal cart, that the person's name is Joseph. And then it just starts saying,
John. Help. 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 John. Help. Help.
and then she loses control of her arms because the ghost is being so frantic with her that she brushes everything off the table, and they have to bring the seance to a close there.
The buildup of even the whatchamacallit, the husband being more and more concerned.
Help, John, help.
Yeah, like it's just like everything about this.
Even just describing it right now, I'm still feeling like the tingly on my spine from it, because it's legitimately creepy. And they move on to like another stage of the seance, which I don't really know what the purpose of this one is.
Yeah,
but it seems like they get more information out of this half of it, because basically they've set up this big metallic cone in the middle of the table, and she asks a bunch of questions, which they're not hearing any answers to, but the cone is kind of waggling back and forth. Every shot we get of John Russell during the ceremony, his face looks very skeptical, and I was getting the impression that he was getting frustrated with these people, that they were wasting his time. Specifically, the first half of the seance felt like there was nothing supernatural about it in terms of from the perspective of a skeptic.
It was a good show.
Yeah, it was a good show, and it could very easily have been a performance of a con artist. But for this second half, there's an actual supernatural element of it, which is that this cone is just wiggling around with no string attached to it, and nobody seeming to pilot its movements. And so I felt like every time they show his face, since he's so stern, that he's like angry at them because they're trying to pull something over on him. But then immediately wine glass from the table is shot directly horizontal 20 feet across the room, where it slams into the mantle and just explodes all over the room.
But it opens up a cupboard door.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, what's going to be inside the cupboard?
I didn't even notice
I didn't notice that either.
I was like, nothing. It doesn't come into play.
So I'm really confused at this point in the film what John's motivation is, because you're just like, why are we doing this? Get the hell out of there and just let this go. Like, why are you still in this house? Who cares?
He cares. His motivation is that this ghost clearly wants something from him and is trying to communicate with him. And if he didn't listen to it, it would be the same as if his daughter were on the other side trying to get a message across and nobody was paying attention to it.
All right. I don't think they made that clear.
Well, I thought that was the point. I might be reading too much into it even.
Yeah. We're also making assumptions at this point that this ghost is benevolent.
Right.
Well, he hasn't
and
done
wants
anything.
help and isn't just trying to get him out of the house.
Yeah, like it seems like this ghost is just desperate, but I don't believe that that's true later on.
Well, he did just ask for help 12 times in a row.
Yeah, but like up until this point, there's I mean, although it is creepy, he hasn't done anything malicious.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But so what confused me before this point is that the schoolwork in the bedroom with the small wheelchair is not from the kid in the wheelchair.
Correct.
So my assumption is that Cora went into this room, set down her schoolwork, and was scared by the supernatural goings on of the house.
Ran out in the street.
Ran out of the house and was killed. Is that what happened?
No. Hold on. I thought Cora died. Didn't Cora die before him?
No.
Yeah, Cora died after.
He died in 1906. She died in 1909.
Oh, because I
while the house was empty, while he was with the Changeling in Europe.
Which is my problem with this, is that the ghost wasn't waiting for someone with a tragic loss or needed someone with a tragic loss. It's been reaching out to people for a while. And
well, maybe the ghost reached out to the family after Cora died, and that was their tragic loss.
I will concede that. That is an interesting point.
But they don't spell that out enough for me. And it took me so long to even realize that she died after. I had to pay very close attention to realize that she died after, because I was like, wait, so coincidentally this other girl just happened to die in the same house? Like, none of these people are named that. Like, why is this?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand what was going on.
But in my mind, I didn't realize that it was after either, because I was like, oh, right. So he needs an heir, and I was like, both kids, if both kids were gone, but it's just a stupid thing where you can only have an heir that's a man.
Well, for a second, I thought that the whole Cora story was fabricated, and they literally planted it in the microfiche and built fake graves to like cover up the story of what happened in this house.
Well, because Mrs. Huxley had that information ready to go.
Yeah, even though it wasn't in the public file. But so John, before the seance, had set up, with their permission, had set up his recording device to keep a record of everything that happened, and he's looking through the notes that are scribbled on the paper, the help and the Joseph, and as he's listening to the recording, he realizes that his device has picked up the voice that the medium was actually responding to, and that he's hearing more than she said to the table. She hears the person say that their name is Joseph, and my medal. Mm-hmm. He wants his medal back, and there's a well and a house with a ranch, and it ends with him explaining that he is Joseph Carmichael.
Yeah, he also mentions Sacred Heart.
Sacred Heart.
Yeah, I listened to this part just audio only.
Yeah.
And it gives me chill. It's very chilling.
The delivery is really creepy.
Yeah. I like it better when he's whispering than when this obviously like older person is doing little kid voice.
Yeah.
Joseph Carmichael. It's like, okay, this is like Phil and Lil from Rugrats voice.
It was a kid that played him, though.
That played the boy, but not. I don't think that boy delivered those lines.
Oh, you don't think so? Okay.
But the line "My Metal" that gets played back again later, like that was just genuinely terrifying too. It kind of reminds me, in terms of the delivery, it reminds me of Oogie Boogie going, "My bugs, my bugs, my bugs." But he's sitting there terrified, and as we're hearing Joseph's voice on the recording, we're getting this really awesome floaty POV shot just moving throughout the house really quickly, spinning downstairs and flying across rooms as he's talking about what happened to him. And Russell has this vision of this kid who was struck down with some sort of a muscular I forget what they call it. I wrote it down here. I'll mention it later, but
he was undersized and couldn't walk.
Yeah. And he's taking a bath in his room when his father comes in the middle of the night and lifts his legs up so that he falls into the tub and he can't get a grip on the edges of the bathtub, and he's just swinging his arms out, pounding on them, and we hear the familiar clanging of the house every morning. Was the sound of this kid banging on the tub.
And this is horrifying. Like, this is like, I mean, of all the ways that a parent could like kill their child and that a child could die, I feel like this scene makes me hyperventilate. It's just absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, and the music box starts playing like it's bumped during the struggle.
Yeah,
starts playing. That's why I was really watching closely the second time. I was like,
where's the clock? Where's the clock?
Yeah, like does the guy's watch fall in? Does he see the watch? Like
there's no reason he couldn't have been taking a 6 o'clock bath. He's taking a 6 o'clock bath.
6 a.m. 6 a.m. bath. You know what? that's the thing you do.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you do at 6 o'clock in the morning in 1909?
Slept.
Well, people weren't lazy in 1909. But yeah, so he sees the father drown the kid, and then the voice tells him that the ghost is Joseph Carmichael, which, if you'll recall, is the name of the senator who gave that speech at the symphony orchestra.
That. So, I mean, I realized that later.
That it was the same
much
person.
Later in the movie.
You thought it was a member of the Carmichael family.
Right.
But not necessarily that guy.
That it was supposed to be the same guy. Because in my mind, 1909 or 1906 or whatever the year that this kid was supposed to have died is so far away.
Right.
Nobody would still be alive. But this was 1980, so this was a lot closer to that date.
And we don't even know if it was 1980 that it took place in.
Right.
Because we just know it takes place on March 4th.
Right. The actual story, the Colorado story, takes place in the 1960s, the haunting period of the story. But yeah, for a 10-year-old in 1906 to still be alive as a senator means that he was born in 1896. So it is confusing to wrap your head around. Like, wait, in 1980 he was a senator? But yeah, we still do that sometimes. We have senators that are into their 90s looking at you, Strum Thurmond. When he finishes listening to it, he wanders over to his phone and he picks it up and he says,
Claire! This is Frank! Cross! I know it's been 15 years since we talked, but I really need to talk to you right now. Something terrible has happened. Or maybe not, I don't know. But whatever, I have to talk to you no matter what. It's urgent.
Call me at any hour. I had to put that down because the fact that her name is Claire makes that too perfect.
Yeah.
But that's not... Wait, that's from Scrooged. What he actually says is that he needs help, and he basically collapses while he's not leaving a message. He's on the phone with her, right?
Yeah. Which then, there's a lot of scenes where it just cuts.
Yeah,
and
we
then,
jump cut to her having heard the message.
Yeah,
right?
and she's crying. She's very upset, and this is one of those things where like everything is just working out.
Right.
Like it wasn't like he only he heard the recording when he plays it back for her. It's not there. It's like no,
yeah,
it's,
that's true. We're so used to this in movies where people are like, "Here's the evidence," and then they're like, "Oh, this page is blank," and it's like, "Oh, what? It was there a second ago. I swear."
And she's freaking out about it, and
he's like, "I heard Sacred Heart," and she was like, "That was a local orphanage," and then he's basically put the whole thing together in his head already.
Yeah, but then she just completely freezes up when she looks at the stairs.
Right. Oh, because God, that just felt it again.
And so once again, like, there's clearly something happening now.
Yeah.
This isn't someone's imagination.
Yeah.
And
the wheelchair from the room has rolled itself to the top of the stairs.
All the way to
the tiny little child's wheelchair.
Yeah.
It's so creepy little. Does it just stay it just stays at the top of the stairs, right?
For now, yeah.
In this scene, that's all it does. It just looks at them.
The chair looks at them.
The chair looks
menacing.
Joseph Carmichael gets a call from Minnie, the nosy lady at the Historical Society, and she says, "Hey, they're going through the files. I just thought you should know." And he says, "Thank you very much, Minnie." And she's like, "Oh, it's an honor to be of service," or something like that, because she's just trying to brown nose and get credit.
So at this point, are we suspecting, or maybe we always suspect this? I don't know. I'm unclear on whether or not Joe Carmichael knows anything about what happened.
He knows.
He knows for sure.
He knows.
Yeah,
he's got to know. He was a 10-year-old child at least a 10-year-old child when this happened.
Well, wait, hold on. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Because later, I got the feeling, he knows. Maybe he didn't know.
He knows that he's not Joseph Carmichael.
Oh, yes. He knows that he's not Joseph Carmichael.
But he doesn't know that the real Joseph Carmichael was around.
So
that from what I understood, that's the case.
Yeah, because he seems genuinely upset at the allegations. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So he gets this call, and basically he's been orchestrating this cover up. It seems foolish of a person trying to cover up their past to pay significant sums of money to keep this house in its current condition instead of burning it to the ground decades ago. But he keeps paying money to the Historical Society to maintain this home.
Well, for all I guess for all he knows, it's the home where his father lived.
Right, that's true.
That's the only thing
if he doesn't know what happened necessarily. But yeah, so based on the historical documents, Russell and Claire conclude basically that Richard Carmichael, the father of Joseph Carmichael, drowned his son. He had atrophic arthritis, and then he replaced his son with an orphan from Sacred Heart. They went to Europe, or Switzerland, right? They went to Switzerland for the extent of World War I.
Right.
And they didn't come back until the child was 18. So that people wouldn't recognize him.
Well, they conveniently got trapped by the war.
Yeah.
Right. And they could say, "Oh, well, he was cured, and that's why he doesn't have his condition anymore."
And the whole motivation behind this being
Richard's father-in-law had left a will in what George C. Scott calls 1905, which that's how I'm going to refer to the
aughts.
The aughts. I don't like aughts. I want to go. 19...
So can we just say 23?
Yes. Back in 23, it was a very good year.
There's a lot of... I don't like how this kind of comes together, because we hear the recording, then Claire hears the recording, when we get the big dramatic with the wheelchair, and then we cut to Carmichael arriving at his office, which is the craziest looking building I've ever seen. It's the Rainier Tower in Seattle.
Oh, yes, that building.
And I was just like,
it reminded me of the Cube.
Yeah.
The Phoenix Foundation building.
It's got like a big swoop on the bottom, so that it's really narrow at the base and then swoops out to a normal sized building.
Yeah. It was designed by Minoru Yamasaki, who also designed the World Trade Center.
Oh, really?
And the Century City Triangle Towers.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
He really likes shapes.
Yeah.
Architects
Who doesn't like shapes?
Architects tend to be fans of shapes.
But they're like very clear, like he's got a very clear style. It's like,
so what you're saying is he doesn't like boring buildings.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, right? That's probably why he gets the big bucks.
But we go from that scene of exposition of him listening to the recording, getting all that information, Claire giving him more information, the scene of Senator Carmichael getting the call, and then them having lunch and discussing more information. There's a lot of just like scenes of
spelling it all out.
Well,
it's funny too that they spelled so much of it out and they still didn't tell us enough about Cora's story for my taste.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because then he's like looking at like atlases of the city
right
over various years. Like this guy, very accommodating guy at the public records, who got out like different decades worth of atlases.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Those people live for that
yeah,
stuff. They just want a little mystery to solve with old maps.
Did that building remind you of anything when they're looking at the maps?
No.
When there's a vaguely British librarian type character pointing at a bunch of maps and telling them about the locations of things and ancient wells that are now covered in different kinds of buildings. Legend of the Holy Rose.
Oh,
Michael Ensign was in that same building.
Oh, was that the same building?
That's the same building. Pointing at maps with MacGyver, telling him where a well was that was now housed in a church. In this movie, it's now a house. But we're skipping over a couple things here that I want to mention. Richard Carmichael's father-in-law, the murderer's father-in-law, had a lot of money, and it was all going to go to Joseph, but he wasn't going to get it if he died before he was 21.
Right.
So Richard didn't want to take the chance on
it was going to go to charity.
Yeah.
If it didn't get inherited. It was skipping over his son for some unknown reason. He didn't like his son-in-law.
Yeah.
And even though Richard was never going to get any of it, he was at least going to have some kind of power as the father of this rich child. So he decides he's going to drown the kid and replace him with a kid that he knows will live past 21, so the money doesn't go to charity.
Right, just to guarantee that the money doesn't get lost.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But following clues in this message that there's a well on a ranch somewhere.
Yeah.
He goes to this place and finds out that there is a well on a property.
Well, he makes a very big leap that they would have a ranch with a well. Like, it's like, that's a place. It's like, you can get rid of bodies anywhere.
Didn't he ask Claire, like, is there a Carmichael ranch? I'm pretty sure he asked Claire if
He does, but why that wouldn't be my immediate thought for ranch. I'd be checking out the basement of the house that I'm in.
Sure.
Looking for a body. I wouldn't be thinking like, did they own any other property with a well?
Yeah, I think he's just using whatever clues he has, and the ghost of Joseph Carmichael mentioned a well on a ranch.
Right.
And he says the ranch. So he assumed, okay, the ranch would mean that this is their ranch, right?
I also don't know if anyone noticed anything weird about the placement of this well.
Yes, I did. It's like 100 feet from the water. Why would you put a well there?
Yeah.
Not even 100 feet. It's like right. The house is like on the water practically.
Yeah.
It's like this. And if this is supposed to be Seattle, that means it's probably one of the many straits. Is that what they're called in Seattle? Is that what those?
Yeah, sure.
Sounds.
Sounds.
Yeah, you're talking about the sounds.
So that means it's salt water.
It's salt water. Yeah, you wouldn't put a well there.
Yeah. He's like, I am so tired of walking 5 feet that way, scooping up water and boiling it for 6 hours. Why don't we just dig here? So they put a well right next to the water and a house on the beach. And so they go to this house. This woman lets them inside.
Well,
we get some more exposition, actually.
Yeah, I love this. Like, he goes there and she's not home.
He gets all the way to the house and he picks up some mail that's on the ground in front of the house.
It's so anticlimactic.
Yeah. But I don't even understand what the point of that
unnecessary.
was. Yeah, it's completely arbitrary because he's not getting any new information other than like the name of the woman who lives there.
Yeah, the name of the woman.
But it's like, wouldn't that be in the public records too? Like, couldn't you have just called this woman from your home?
Well, because I was like, and I wrote down the name. Ooh, Mrs. E. Gray. How does she play into all of this?
I'm glad I didn't write anything down.
It's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I did like the moment, though, when he's talking to the librarian about where the well is. He says,
According to the legend...
And I was like, why is he talking about legends? And I was like, oh, he means literally the map legend.
legend.
That's what I said. It's like, according to legend.
It's just like, they're making this sound way more grandiose than it is. Is there really a legend about all this? Oh, no, he's talking about the map. Okay. But yeah, so we get more exposition now. We've broken it up with them finding this woman's mail on her own doorstep, giving them no new information other than her pointless name, and then they get in a car and drive in a loop. They just do a U-turn and come back at night.
Yeah, they come back to the house. shots later.
But while they're driving around, they just elaborate on the exposition. Oh, well, old man Spencer's daughter was dead, and obviously he wasn't too fond of the son-in-law. How did his daughter die?
Whose daughter?
Old man Spencer, the
rich guy.
The rich guy that's living on the money. Because his son-in-law is now a murderer. The mom died, but we never cover how the mom died.
Yeah, we never cover how she died. She died.
Yeah. So they go in, they meet the homeowner, and she says, look, the only reason I'm meeting with you is because of something you said on the phone. And you said you had a seance on Monday night or whatever. And that exact night, what you described about a well, my daughter said that there was a skinny boy trying to climb up through the floorboards in her room, and she had a nightmare. And this was not like a normal nightmare. She was screaming bloody murder, and she won't even go back in the room.
She describes the boy as gnome-like,
right?
Which I think only hammers home that this kid had some kind of growth deficiency. But I love when they go into her room and they turn on the light, and it's just like nothing but land.
Yeah, it looks like Leah's room in To All a Good Night. I was telling Jess that this is the biggest difference between the 1980s and the present so far in terms of popular trends. Is there's a lot more indoor plants in the 1980s than there are now. People don't do that anymore.
Well, it looked like there was almost no windows. It was like maybe it's like why she was compensating for the fact that there was no windows. Here, you won't suffocate if we fill this room up with plants.
You got it's furnished. But so they are invited into the daughter's room to take a look at it, but they don't really do much here. Immediately after they leave, though, the daughter has another vision of this boy climbing up through the floorboards. We cut immediately to an overhead shot of them. Literally, her carpet has been torn up and they're cutting through the floorboards with a saw to find that there is a well situated exactly underneath the floor of this room. And it seems like there's not even that much between the floorboards of the room and the well. It's just open to the bottom of the floorboards.
Right.
There would be water damage and all kinds of problems.
Well, the well was filled in with dirt, as they do with abandoned wells.
Right, but it's still wet. Because they're so close to the water. Yeah.
They're so close.
Yeah. Well, I guess that is one benefit to putting your well right next to the ocean, is that you don't have to dig very far. It gets wet fairly quick. I've dug a well on the beach before. It's just a regular sand pit. But John Russell's in the hole digging, and he comes across the skeletal remains of a hand. Is it only a hand?
I think that's just the first thing that he finds.
Because I thought someone else said, is it just a hand? And he says, well, that's all I see here. Implying that was all that there was. But
I think it was just that's what the first thing that he came across was the hand.
But, of course, the first step here, which they actually take, I was happy, is you call the police.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
What you do. The second you find any human remains, you call the police. The police show up, and they're like, do you have some idea who the child was? No, not really. What do you mean, not really?
I'm glad they
you're
called
old
it
enough
out,
to have killed this person. We just said the body was only 50 years old.
Yeah.
Because we don't know for sure. Yeah. But, so the police basically lock up the house and send the family that lived there on their way to a hotel. And they make everybody leave. Russell loops around again, comes back and breaks into the home after the cops leave.
This kind woman let you come and cut up her house, and then you go and break into her house? It seems really rude.
Yeah. But he does it. And he gets in the well, and he's digging for a while to try and find what he suspects is down here. And it turns out he's right. The metal.
I like this shot.
Yeah.
They clearly did a
reverse
shot. Because it's like the metal was pulled into the ground and then they reversed it, so it's like this metal
slowly
is like
creeps out,
growing out of the dirt.
Yeah, it's very cool the way they did it. But this is exactly what he came there for, and he picks it up and he leaves. My metal.
He takes it to Claire to prove, okay, this is it. This is the connection that we're making.
And it's should have left this with the body. The cops would have found it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Says now I can go see Senator Carmichael. It's he's not going to talk to you. It's he'll talk to me. And I'm he's going to confront him. It's no, he drives his car
onto the tarmac,
screaming and yelling, Senator, I found a dead body in the basement.
This will make him listen to me.
Name.
Be a crazy person and go to jail.
Yes, this is Homer Simpson's bull here, firing a shotgun into the air. I was you didn't approach this well at all. Of course they're going to drag you away.
Yeah. Well, it was funny too because when the scene started, like I think we were assuming like that inexplicably he would break through and have a conversation with the senator, but Jess is like, this is dumb. The Secret Service would just pull him away immediately, and that's what they do. Like immediately his guards are just like, nope, get out, you're done. And he gets on the plane and he's just like, yeah, I don't know what that was all about. And he calls the police captain and says you need to pay this John Russell a visit.
And when John Russell returns home, all the doors start slamming in his face. It's like,
yeah. He's like,
what do you want from me? Yeah, it's like, I'm doing everything I can here.
I'm investigating your murder. I don't know how far you can see. We found the well. I got your medal back. Where do you want me to put this?
I'm working on it. I haven't stopped.
Yeah. And then Captain DeWitt shows up and gives him a bunch of crap. He's like, hey, where's that medal? I heard you stole a medal from the senator. We want it back. And he's like, I didn't steal the medal from the senator. And he's like, well, you have to tell me where it is. And by the way, you don't have any rights to this home. So we're going to kick you out. We're going to take all your stuff.
Yeah. Like he keeps denying everything. And then Claire shows up. And I was like, oh, God, here we go. Claire's going to say something that's totally going to undo his lies to this police chief. Luckily,
she catches herself pretty quick. She walks in a tizzy because she just got fired, basically. Mm-hmm. She walks in, she's like, I am so pissed right now. You can never believe what the... And then she notices the cop and she's like, what? Sorry, what's going on? I'm not going to say anymore until I know what's happening here.
Also, if I'm her, I am not going back in this house.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, right?
No. I just saw a dead child's wheelchair come to the edge of the stairs.
Yeah. But Captain DeWitt basically leaves him with the threat. He says, we're going to come back. We're going to find that medal. We're going to take all your stuff. And we're going to kick you out of here. And he leaves to go down the street. And so does Claire. She left.
Yeah, she left too.
And she notices down the street that suddenly, while it was driving, the police car literally just flipped completely upside down on its top. Mm-hmm. And Officer DeWitt is dead. And at the same time as he had that accident, a mirror that George C. Scott is looking into in the home explodes with such force that literally a shard of glass, I think, actually hit George C. Scott. And then they played into it by having him like pull a shard of glass out of his neck in the next scene.
Yeah, it was a pretty
yeah.
Like I don't like it. But now, like, this is clear that this spirit is not like peaceful.
Yeah.
Like this is upping the ante to.
But I think here it was just going like, you're interrupting him. Let him finish his work. Mm-hmm. He's uncovering my murderer. But it's also interesting too that the way the windshield broke of the police car, because we get this shot directly through just a hole punched out of the driver's side.
So what I'm assuming is happening is that the windshield got punched in. He, in his blind, was swerving and flipped the car.
But it broke in the same way that the mirror did. The senator's plane lands. It seems like he just flew in a circle and landed in the same place where he took off.
Yeah.
And he gets in his limo and he gets a phone call and he's like, "Oh yeah, what about Captain DeWitt? How'd that go?" Oh my God. It's just like, okay, this is a problem.
Yeah. And I was also wondering when the invention of the car phone was, which led me down a path.
Oh, interesting.
Because he's in the car and he picked up a phone. I was like, did they have car phones then? They did. They were essentially just really high powered walkie talkies that just designed to look like a phone.
Oh, okay.
But it would be transmitted through to a phone system.
Oh, okay.
And then the call would be routed and whatnot.
That makes sense.
But it was still connected. It wasn't a portable phone.
Right.
You could not remove that phone from the car.
But if anyone had them, it was probably the president and senators.
Yeah. It wasn't until like later in the 80s that you got like the battery packed ones that you could actually walk around with if you wanted to.
So in finding out that the street tough that he sent to Russell's house was murdered in response, he invites John Russell over to have a conversation. It's like, why would you talk to this man? He just killed someone, as far as you know. But the senator's sitting at his desk and Russell enters. He brought the medal. He brought all the paperwork on the property. Mm-hmm. And he brought the recording of the seance, the only copy of the recording of the seance. And he tells the senator what he believes happened. The senator is just infuriated that these accusations would be leveled at his father, who he loved and who possibly loved him.
Yeah, and this is why I started wondering if he knew anything about anything. Like, if he had absolutely no idea. Not only I wasn't sure about the Joseph Carmichael. I wasn't sure about the murder. I think it makes more sense that he knows that he's not Joseph Carmichael now. But I still don't think he knew about the murder.
Right.
He definitely knows he's not Joseph Carmichael because A, he was 10 years old when this switcheroo happened, and B, he's clearly trying to cover something up. Like he's been trying to keep some secret, so it must at least be that he knows he's not the real heir to this fortune.
Not that there's anything anyone would do about it at this point if they did find that out.
That was my next thing I was going to say. It's like,
what are the legal ramifications of this secret getting out?
Yeah, he's not responsible for anything that his father did.
I also feel like there's part of this scene, I feel like this anger is misplaced because the guy in this painting on the senator's desk is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's the one who murdered a child. All this person did was, like, a murderer came up to him and he was like, hey, do you want millions of dollars?
And it'd be taken from this orphanage, which is probably horrible.
Yeah. And all he did, like, he was in, even if it was a terrible thing to do, he was 10 years old when he agreed to take this kid's place. Mm-hmm. He's a child. You can't hold him responsible for that for the rest of his life.
Well, and he probably didn't agree to take the kid's place so much. And it just says, I'm going to name you Joseph Carmichael, and when we're going to stay here until you're 18.
Yeah, and
together.
You're going to tell people you were cured, and then we're going to get a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems pretty clear that he didn't know that his father actually murdered someone to get the money.
Because George C. Scott sees that he's upset.
I'm guessing the father said, my son died, and I'm going to get cheated out of all this inheritance unless you pretend to be my son. Will you do that for me?
Mm-hmm.
And he did it, and he rose to the rank of senator. And so I feel like Joseph Carmichael's getting a lot of shit here that he necessarily doesn't deserve. But he keeps trying to write a check to Russell because he's convinced that this is all scheme to get a bribe, and that he's trying to, like, withhold, his ability to get reelected.
And possibly that he also kind of implies that, like, I've dealt with people like you before. It's like, oh, maybe he's not the first person to kind of work this out.
Oh, maybe.
And he's paid them off. Because
Minnie Huxley, all the more reason to burn this house down.
Yeah, that's true.
He's paying millions of dollars to maintain it, and he didn't, between tenants, he doesn't go in there and clean the room with a wheelchair and cobwebs and
They didn't know the room was there. It was
Joseph Carmichael knows it's there. They boarded it up.
Why would he know it's there?
He didn't even live there.
Who nailed all this stuff over the door? They came back to the house after they came back.
Probably the father.
After he killed his son, he nailed it up and hid that room.
If he doesn't know it's there, then what is he hiding from people? He doesn't know where the body's buried. He doesn't know anything. All he knows is that he's not Joseph Carmichael. He doesn't know where any proof is. Why does he care about the property records of that house?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I still don't know what Minnie Huxley's part in this is.
Just
serving the senator.
Woman. Yeah. Who thinks she's going to get something from the senator for it. But yeah, the senator defends his father to the point of tears. And Russell says, look, I'm not trying to bribe you. I came here to tell you what happened, and you either knew this or you didn't. But here's all the evidence that I have. There's no reason for me to go after you in a legal court. I don't have a case. I'm not going to waste money on an attorney.
Yeah, there's no...
All I can do is point this out to you and let you know that the ghost is upset. And that I have it from a reliable source that Joseph Carmichael doesn't like you. And he leaves. And the senator picks up the medal from the table, and he looks at his own medal, which is basically a mock-up of what was buried with the kid.
And he throws his aside.
Yeah, he throws the fake away and decides that he's going to drape the real one over the picture of his father.
Which to me, again, was hammering the home that he...
That's him making the decision to replace Joseph.
Or that he realized that he's not really Joseph.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I was really confused. That whole motion seemed to be like, this wasn't real. I'm not the real Joseph after all. But again, now I see it makes more sense that he's accepting it.
Yeah. Maybe that's what he's doing wrong. Maybe that's why he's being judged, is because he looked at these two medals and he decided, you know what? I am Joseph. Screw that ghost. He doesn't matter. I'm Joseph. And he threw away his own medal. And that's where he's knowingly, as an adult, taking the identity of this dead child and saying, I don't care what my father did. I'm this person now. Because if he'd have just kept his own medal, he would have been like, I don't know who that is. That's not me. Well, this is me. This is how I was raised. But either way, Russell leaves. Claire stops by the home. Again, no reason she would go to this house. And she starts to climb the stairs because she thinks he's in the house. She can hear sounds.
Yeah, she hears his voice.
Does she hear his voice?
Yeah.
She gets up the stairs, and suddenly the wheelchair comes around a corner.
Yeah, she goes all the way up to the kid's room in the attic. Again,
why are you going to go in there?
I wouldn't set 2 feet in this house.
She did say, I don't want to have to go up there. Like, answer me.
But I also like the implication that, did they put the wheelchair back up there? Or did the ghost put the wheelchair back up there? Because last time we saw it, it was on the top
of the stairs. Yeah, he probably pushed it back up there.
I could just see Georgie's got like,
dumb thing.
Back up here.
6 a.m. every morning, this thing's at the top of the stairs.
And I don't understand the motivation to hurt Claire.
Yeah.
I think at this point,
it's like the ghosts in the fog.
The spirit is just getting frustrated.
But he has what he wants. He has Joseph Carmichael dead to rights with the medal at his desk. That part of the plan is done.
Yeah.
And it'd be one thing if he was just trying to get her out of the house, but he lures her deeper into the house.
He does. And then he chases her down the stairs, and almost like death becomes her on the way out of the building. She falls down the entire flight of stairs from the second floor to the first floor, but gets up immediately and leaves because Russell's just walking in the door.
And then why is Russell going into the house? What is...
Well, because he wants to tell the ghost the great news.
The great news that he just turned over all the evidence and, like, there is no justice to be had.
I had it right. Oh, God. I didn't leave that on his desk, did I? Oh, I'm so stupid.
And, like, he's in the house. Where does he need to go? It's like he's trying to get to the room, but the room's never had any real significance on its own ever since he broke the lock, which I don't know if that didn't seem to stop the ghost from having access to the house before with the opening of doors and such. So I don't know what his plan is, other than to get thrown off the second floor balcony.
He wants the house to be like, thanks. Like, he wants to come home and be greeted as a hero. But what happens
I don't understand, though, why he thinks that what he did was heroic, because, like, I feel like if you were the ghost, you'd want justice. And how is confronting the person that took your place justice? Because it wouldn't be telling everybody and, bringing this guy, in for, I don't know, whatever you could charge him with. Wouldn't that be justice?
Well, at the very least, it's justice on the father, who is a murderer, for the person who this father probably, like, the only person who loved his father anymore. Now that person is learning, oh, he was actually a murderer. So the word is out now to the only person who still cared about his father that his father was a terrible person. So that's the justice that the ghost
that's
got.
Crappy justice.
It is crappy justice. And it's
I feel like
super
the ghost
belated.
would have wanted more, which is why he's pushing Claire down the stairs.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? I thought I was going to be happy. This wasn't enough.
Turns out revenge doesn't make me feel good.
Maybe if I kill more people.
But pushing her down the stairs is really the first, like, really... Well, no, I guess...
He killed the cop.
He killed the cop. That is malicious. Yeah. So, but it's the first malicious things he does to anybody who didn't really do anything to deserve it.
Right.
And I would argue that the cop really didn't deserve it.
Well...
He didn't deserve to die.
But yeah, Russell goes up the first flight of stairs, and as he's coming around the banister, the wind is blowing through this house so wildly that he literally gets blasted through the banister and back to the first floor, off, like, just over the edge.
Yeah, that was crazy. I did not expect that.
Yeah. I thought it was just going to be like him, like, struggling against the wind to get in, and then he was going to have, like, another conversation with a ghost, but he literally gets blasted the whole way back to the first floor. He's laying on the ground, and the chandelier over him is swaying wildly, when suddenly he turns to the right and he sees a vision of the senator walking up the stairs. Like, the senator came to his house to face the ghost and face his destiny. And as he's walking up the stairs, the banister catches fire the whole way around the floor. And right as the senator steps off the top step onto the second floor, the entire stairs
collapse
below him just collapse on each other, and they basically fold in half with nothing underneath them.
And this is the moment that I realized, oh, a bunch of these interiors were built too.
Yeah. The senator just keeps walking around, like, through the wind toward the room upstairs, while Russell's watching from the ground. The chandelier eventually does fall, and Russell gets out of the way just in time. Outside, Claire is scrambling to get back into the house because she knows that Russell's in there, but the door's somehow locked itself, but he's able to open it from the inside.
Right.
And then they both sort of step outside. Does he tell her that he saw the senator?
I'm not sure.
I don't think he does.
But the senator, we should...
The senator's not actually here.
He's not. He's still at his desk, but his whole desk is like going crazy. But he's like hypnotized, and there's this cool little like key light of the metal reflection on his face.
Right.
And he witnesses the murder, essentially.
Yes.
Which causes
that
him...
he benefited from.
Yeah, which causes him to, I guess, just have a heart attack.
Yeah. I mean, he was 120 years old, so... So if I think this takes... If car phones, you said, did exist technically in 1980, and he has one in this movie, so that it is supposed to be 1980. So he's like...
Well,
they
84?
Well, they did exist in the late 70s as well, but...
So he's you know...
If it takes place the year it was released, he would be 84.
Yeah, which isn't unheard of for senators. I don't think I'd be worried a bunch about re-election if I were 84. So it seems like Russell and Claire basically get in a car and drive directly to the senator's home, where he's being walked out or carried out of the building on a stretcher, with it completely covered because he died.
I feel like this would be a bad move.
Did you recognize this building though?
I didn't recognize
the senator's house. Legend of the Holy Rose. It's the castle house that like the whole second.
I cannot
part
believe
of
that I did not recognize any of these
because
MacGyver locations.
When you're shooting the entire movie in Vancouver, there's going to be a
yeah.
lot of stuff that's from MacGyver episodes. But yeah,
I think it would be a bad idea for you as the crazy person that attacked the senator at the airport to then immediately go to his house.
Yeah.
Right when he died?
After only visiting him hours before, probably? Because
Right.
he was still wearing the same clothes?
Right. Right. You just visited this man, and then he mysteriously died after you attacked him at the airport. Not a good move.
No. It's pretty common practice in the cases of bombings and like serial pyromania situations to take a lot of photographs of the crime scene in the hours after, because a lot of the time you end up finding pictures of the person who caused it because they want to stick around and see the aftermath of their actions. And it would be extremely bad if someone noticed him outside and he didn't have a reasonable excuse for being there, and they were like, why are you here? What?
You saw
I don't know.
his ghost going up the stairs?
I felt like he was going to die. Well, you were in his office earlier. Did you give him anything? Yeah, I gave him a few things. I gave him a bunch of stuff. I hope none of it killed him. But I didn't give him any food or anything, so...
I gave him some metal that's been in the ground for 50 years. Maybe it was got some disease.
He ate that? Shot him up with some polonium?
It was wrapped around a corpse.
But yeah, the senator's dead, and the next day we get a shot of the burnt wheelchair at the bottom of the stairs, and the burnt music box is right next to it, and it pops open and plays the song
bottom
for
of
the
the
credits.
stairs. There's nothing left. It's just a pile of ash.
Which when I saw that house completely engulfed in flames, it's like, okay, this is not a real house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very convincing, though.
Yeah. No, it was definitely worth all $200,000 that they spent on it.
That facade looked awesome.
This is 1980. $200,000, you could have bought that whole house if it was real. Yeah. And that's it. That's the end of the film. We said before it was directed by Peter Medak.
Yeah, so this guy is awesome. I was looking up all these things that he's done. Did you ever watch Fairy Tale Theater?
And I didn't, but I saw that was on his thing.
What's her name?
I definitely watched these as a kid, and I loved them. It was Shelley Duvall hosted. Yes, and they were great. They were great little... Maybe they don't hold up. I haven't seen them since, probably...
Hervé Villachez was in one of them, too.
Probably, because they were great.
This is like the weird versions, like Robin Williams and like Beauty and the Beast. Like it had famous people in them.
They were definitely famous people in these episodes. I remember loving them as a kid, so I think those are great. I love that he did 5 of those.
I think Hervé was Rumpelstiltskin in one of the episodes. But Peter Medak also directed Zorro the Gay Blade with George Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
He directed Species 2.
Yeah, I was really confused by the IMDb picture because it was like, is that a xenomorph in the picture with him?
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that? Why does the xenomorph have boobs?
Why not?
We all have boobs.
I like that he did 6 episodes of Homicide: Life on the Street.
Is that with Detective Bayless?
Detective Bayless! Yeah!
I guess he was the third choice to direct this after a couple other people left with creative differences. But he ended up joining just a month before shooting began, which is pretty impressive.
Dewey gets all the credit.
Yep.
He did an episode of Breaking Bad.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Which episode?
Peekaboo.
Oh, I don't know that one. The film was written by William Gray, who will write Prom Night later this year. He also wrote Philadelphia Experiment and a few episodes of the 90s RoboCop show.
Yeah.
Which on his IMDb page, I was like, wait, did he write RoboCop? Because
Yeah,
it's just a picture of RoboCop with the word RoboCop underneath. It didn't indicate that it was a TV show. But
and he also wrote Dark Shadows, The House of Dark Shadows, which is cool.
What is The House of Dark Shadows? Is that the movie of the
Yeah.
soap series? And the other writer, Diana Maddox, also wrote The Amateur next year, 1981. And she has a lot of TV acting credits also.
And it's weird that they wrote it together. And I don't think they wrote anything else
partners,
together. Yeah. But they have the ampersand and.
Which means that they wrote it together, yeah.
Correct.
I didn't know there was a distinction with that.
When it's the ampersand, it means they were writing partners, and when it says and, then it means that the other person came on later and did another draft on it.
Interesting distinction.
George C. Scott was John Russell. I think his name was probably a reference to Russell Hunter, who wrote the book.
And we need to talk about Russell Hunter.
All right, let's talk about him.
Because Russell Hunter based this on a true story of himself.
Being in the house that was haunted?
Being in the house that was haunted and had a seance which led him to a place where he found a body.
What?
Yeah. So he was probably a murderer.
Yeah.
We're going to go out on a limb and say John Russell is based on Russell Hunter, the murderer.
Yeah, I'm trying to
How come we accuse a lot of people of murder on this podcast?
Well, that's what podcasts are for. It's cold cases. This is basically our version of cold cases. Movie cold cases.
Yeah, so he experienced a series of unexplained phenomenon. He found a century-old journal detailing the life of a disabled boy who was kept in isolation.
Right. They said century-old, but I think someone also said that the house wasn't even like 60 years old, so he couldn't have found a century-old journal.
Yeah, he uses the word claimed. He claimed the spirit of a boy, led him to another house where he discovered a body.
But he legitimately discovered a body?
Yeah. But the house belonged to someone who was childless. And the house...
Well, now they are.
Yeah. I was like, what is happening with all this? I was asking you, like, did you do any research yet on this movie? Because it's crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty bonkers. George C. Scott, obviously, people probably know him as Patton in Patton.
Yeah.
I always go to General Buck Turgison in Dr. Strangelove. He was also Jake Terrell in Day of the Dolphin. Have you seen Day of the Dolphin?
I have not.
It's literally about dolphins being trained to attack the president. That's the premise of the movie.
Sounds wonderful.
I should check it out because I might have it completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what Day of the Dolphin is about.
Let's not double check this.
Yeah.
Let's just
I have a couple of ones that I go. Patton is usually where I go to.
Yeah.
I like Firestarter.
Oh yeah,
where he plays an Indian.
Does he really?
Oh dear.
I love the Hindenburg movie.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
That's a really great role. He takes a lot of very strange roles.
And then one of his later roles was McLeach in The Rescuers Down Under.
Yeah.
He'll come back later this year in The Formula.
I want that formula!
And he's also Kinderman in Exorcist 3.
Yeah.
I was telling Jess, as a kid, I always confused him and Roy Scheider.
That's a weird...
They're from completely different time periods, but they looked enough alike to me. And as a kid, where they were both now old men, I was just like, they look the same to me. They're probably the same person. So constantly confused the two of them. Trish Van Devere, who was Claire Norman. She was Louise Callan in Where's Papa?
Yeah.
Which is a very funny movie. She plays George C. Scott's wife in Day of the Dolphin. And she will also be back later this year in a movie called The Hearse. Jean Marsh, we talked about, Mombi and Bev Morda. John Colicos, who played Captain DeWitt. In addition to being in that Star Trek episode about changelings, he was the voice of Apocalypse in the X-Men animated series.
Yeah, what a great voice that is, too.
Yeah.
You had your chance to be the first of my creatures, the first to serve my will.
And he'll also be back later this year for John Huston's Phobia. So we have a lot of cool horror movies coming up. Madeleine Sherwood was Mrs. Norman. That's Claire's mother.
Yeah.
Oh, and I recognize she's got a very unique looking face.
Yeah.
She's very unusual looking. And I'm like, I recognize her. And I realized it was because I had just recently watched Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and she plays the obnoxious sister with all the kids.
Yeah, May Pollitt is the character's name. And then Eric Christmas, who plays Albert Harmon, the assistant to the medium. I always recognize him from Harold and Maude, where he plays the priest in that.
Yeah.
But he also plays a priest on a couple other things, including Cheers. Did you?
Well, I was noticing like that he played a lot of priests, but I was also disappointed that I couldn't find a single Christmas movie that he had been in. And I was like, really?
That's gotta be intentional.
Just The Changeling? That's the only Christmas movie he ever did? But he was the priest on Cheers, who I remember there's a few scenes that he's in, but one of them was the funeral for Rhea Perlman's husband.
No.
After he gets hit by the Zamboni.
Yeah.
But yeah, Roberta Maxwell played Ava Lingstrom, which I think is one of the two friends that hooked him up with the professorship that he meets with between the New York scenes and the Seattle scenes.
And that was another thing. Those characters never come up.
Yeah. But that actress plays Nana Oil in Popeye later this year, which is Olive Oil's mother, which is funny because she really looks like Shelley Duvall, too. She was also Jake Gyllenhaal's mother in Brokeback Mountain and Judge Tate in Philadelphia. And her husband in that scene, Bernard Behrens, plays Robert Langstrom. He was Attorney General Smith in The Day Reagan Was Shot. Are you familiar with that film?
I know it, but
It was written and directed by one Cyrus Nowrasteh. Oh. It's a TV movie. Friend of ours, Cyrus Nowrasteh. And he also played an elegant doctor later this year in a movie called Loving Couples. It's credited as Elegant Doctor. So sad that it doesn't have a name, but I'm sure we'll know a little bit more about that later. And then the last credit I wanted to mention, actually there's a couple more. Voldy Way was Joseph Carmichael, which you found some interesting stuff about.
Yeah. Fun little tidbit. His only other credit on IMDb, Voldy Way, aside from playing Joseph Carmichael in The Changeling, was playing Joseph Carmichael in a movie called Boo.
25 years later.
25 years later. Yeah, so apparently it was it was just a cameo, and the name was just an homage to this movie. But he's also just kind of a strange character in and of himself. Like his biography on IMDb says that he was born in a VW bus to flower children parents, and he was home educated, and he co-founded a software company in Santa Ana, which I then looked up. He actually runs a game company. So it's in Valencia. It's called Way Forward.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know Way Forward.
Of course you do.
One of his games just showed up on Switch too.
They have a whole bunch of famous games.
Yeah, I love the Shantae series.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's involved in the Shantae series.
So he's the executive producer of that series.
Those are all really great games.
That's the kid who gets drowned is the executive producer of that game.
I love the fact that his IMDb photo is the creepy underwater him as like a kid in this movie, like the shot of him underwater. That's his photo, where you can't even identify like a human body or face in it, really.
What is it John Legend's wife on Twitter? What's her name?
Chrissy Teigen.
Chrissy Teigen. She tweeted about how she just got some new game and it was terrible, and someone tweeted like, "Oh well, have you played the Shantae games? They're platformers, and I know you like Prince of Persia." And she was like, "Oh my god, I'm downloading it now!" And so that's pinned as Voldy's like most recent tweet is Chrissy Teigen going, "I'm downloading the game now." It's a screenshot of her Switch downloading that game. Two other interesting actors in this film. Giancarlo Esposito was an extra somewhere.
Cool.
But he says he was in it. Also, Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek was literally months old. He plays a baby in this film.
Well, I was gonna say because he's got to be around our age.
His mom worked in casting, and so she.
I don't remember any babies in this movie.
I watched it a second time. Didn't see a single baby. So he's apparently in there somewhere.
Okay. Did we mention Melvyn Douglas as
no, we didn't.
Carmichael?
Yeah.
It's Melvyn Douglas. He has a 2-time Oscar winner, one for HUD and one for Being There with the Sellers. You know, he's in a ton of stuff.
I don't know how I skipped him on here.
He's got a very, very long career.
Up or down, Jess?
That's a big thumbs up for me.
Yeah, it's a thumbs up for me. I know I was harsh in my criticism because I feel that there could have been a few things like tidied up, a little less exposition because the plot is a little convoluted. There's a few too many of the misleads, but I thought it was great. I was really surprised. I got really creeped out watching it by myself.
Yeah, I was surprised that you made it through this movie. Yeah. You're not a fan of scary movies.
Yeah, there were definitely times I was watching it in a dark room by myself, and I kept looking behind myself because I don't like watching a scary movie by myself.
Yeah, we were losing it during the seance scene. Like I was like just fidgeting and like I couldn't sit still. It's pretty legitimately terrifying.
I had multiple audible gasps in this movie.
Yeah. So it definitely a thumbs way up for me. Richard, why don't you start us off? Where's this landing on your letterbox?
I'm having a little bit of a conflict, but I think I'm going to put this in my number 5 spot.
Okay.
So it's going to be below The Fog and above Saturn 3.
Okay.
It is also in my number 5 spot.
Yeah,
finally.
But my list is different from yours.
Of course.
For that number 5 spot, it is just above Mad Max and just below My Brilliant Career.
I'm having a hard time here because I'm trying to decide. I think this goes in my number 2 spot, above Ninth Configuration and right below Forbidden Zone. I really enjoyed this film. And the music didn't bother me, so it gets a little bit of a bump from that for me. But yeah, it's phenomenal, and it's definitely... I think what I'm liking a lot from this year is the stuff that I hadn't seen or really heard about, you know, stuff that doesn't get brought up a lot, and then finding it and being like, wow, this could be like, you know, in my top 10 movies for like the last decade if it had come out right now. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I think that's about it for this one. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us, we are Vintage Video Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Letterboxd, where, as I've said before, you can find each of our full movie rankings for the year. We can also be found at vintagevideopodcast.com. If you consider rating us on iTunes, it would help people find the show, and if you take the time to leave a review, we will thank you personally in an upcoming episode. If you're feeling especially generous, you can also support the show through patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast. Speaking of which, I should mention, we have a second $5 Patreon subscriber.
Woo!
His name is Steve Bayless, which is weird because he spells it the same way you do.
I have nothing to do with this.
And he looks like your dad.
I didn't ask him to do that.
I know you didn't. But thank you, Steve, for your support.
We
appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job. And keep listening. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing Don't Go in the House, which IMDb says is about a disturbed young man who was burned as a child by his sadistic mother and stalks women with a flamethrower. It's pretty succinct. We leave you now with the trailer for Don't Go in the House.
Mother, I'm home. That's right. Go on. I gotta go. I'm just waiting. No, Mother. You're a bad boy. You're evil, and you must be punished. Thanks a lot. You're my very own. Help me! Oh! No! When we get home. Oh,
Mother, this is Linda. I wanted you to meet her before I introduce her to the others.
dare laugh at me.